Welcome to the Phoenix Conversations podcast. Second chances, fresh starts, and powerful new chapters. If you could subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening, Spotify or Apple, or watching on YouTube, that would be fantastically helpful. Thank you. I'm Lucy Macara, author and entrepreneur, and today I'm talking to Heather Pownall. Heather Pownall is the founder of Heather's Media Hub, a purpose-led digital strategy and communications consultancy working across healthcare, research, technology, cybersecurity and membership organisations. She is known for helping complex, mission-driven organisations modernise their digital presence, grow engaged communities, and communicate with clarity, creativity, and impact. Heather, welcome to the Phoenix Conversations. Thank you so much for being my guest this week.
Thank you so much for inviting me on. I'm really excited to chat to you, Lucy.
Me too. Heather, let's start at the beginning. So, what kind of child was young Heather?
I was the first daughter of 5, so I've got 3 older brothers and a younger sister. So that's probably shaped things as well. And I would say I'm from an Irish Glaswegian family as well. So there's a lot of, I grew up with a lot of like matriarch roles around me where the women ran the house and ran the family, and I saw that, and I think I've taken some of that on. But I think being the first daughter as well, there was an element of being the mini mammy in the house, and I kind of wanted to be as well. I looked up to my mum and my aunties and my gran, but I was really shy as well, and there was a lot of big personalities in my gran's house. My dad is one of 8 as well, so yeah, and he was one of the older ones. So when I was really little, some of my aunts and uncles still lived at my gran's as well. So it was a very, very busy house and I loved it. But I was also very shy and the noise was quite a lot for me at times, which I'm now realising is to do with my neurodivergence, which I have found out about later on in life. So I'm starting to understand my reaction to things or being shy or kind of hiding away a little bit. I didn't find school easy. I love school, wanted to please, wanted to be seen better than I was seen. I struggled at school. I had different defining points, really strong memories at different ages where teachers basically just dismissed me or just thought, well, she can't do that. And so I think that shaped things as well. There's 2 sides of me that's always been in conflict. And one is, no, I can and I can show you. And the other one is absolutely crushed by not being able to please and not being able to perform the way that they kind of wanted me to. And that went right through to university. I remember speaking to one of my lecturers and he was like, how are you even here? Imagine that being said to you. How are you here?
Oh,
What school did you go to?
that's
And these sort
absolutely
of things
terrible.
really kind of shape you a little bit. But as a child, I just wanted to do well, wanted to please. I was very athletic and I was very creative as well. And we moved to Northern Ireland when I was 14. Up until that point, I was in drama groups, I was in orchestras, I played the violin, and I was going down a kind of performing arts route. Was doing music, was doing art. Was when I moved to Northern Ireland, I went to a grammar school, and it was a bit more league tabled and academic, and I wasn't allowed to take on music for my GCSEs, and so I ended up changing what I was doing, and that kind of changed focus and how I was doing and what course I ended up doing as well. But yeah, that was me.
So would you say that that change was actually your first reinvention in a way, that you had to move out of your creative self and become something? Because I know you started your career in publishing. So what did you study at university and how did that relate to your creative desires before that?
Yeah. So I ended up my A levels, I did English, history and politics. And I went on to do a communications degree, which, I have kind of stayed in that realm. But yes, I did that degree. And I kind of thought, if I go into that, maybe then I can move into maybe production and TV and things like that. That's what I was kind of thinking in my head. But that, life takes over and you start doing what you're doing. And I ended up in publishing. But to go back to the Northern Irish move, I was doing drama, and that was when I first started to realise I could reinvent myself, or I didn't have to be this shy person that I'm known. living in Clydebank, everybody knew me and knew parents, brothers, aunts, uncles, like you were known as part of a family. Moving to Northern Ireland, nobody knew me. So I kind of thought, well, I don't have to be what people think I am. I can be, I went the other way though with bravado. I went a bit loud, bit obnoxious, I think. But I just thought, well, nobody knows me. So I think I started to perform and I was a new girl, the Scottish girl, in this Northern Irish school. So that was that side of things. But it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy to integrate and to feel like you belonged. I did find it quite hard. I loved it, but academically, I still continued to kind of struggle, but I worked really, really hard to get where I was going. And I think I'm understanding what that is now. There's undiagnosed dyslexia and ADHD and things like that. And I'm starting to understand where things were a challenge for me and why I also was like, no, I just see things a bit differently.
So even at that stage, though, when you were undiagnosed, did you manage to use your neurodivergence as a positive thing, or did you constantly feel it was getting in your way?
I think it was a bit of both. I think some people, if I didn't take instruction, I'm not great at taking verbal instruction when it's just said to you and I'm not expecting it. I'd go into panic when I was really young. I would panic like you have to go home and tell your mum, and then it was just white noise. Do you know what I couldn't? But I think I see things differently. I am creative and I just have ideas all the time, just constant ideas. But I grew up in quite a risk adverse household from working class roots, and I totally understand it was on protection, like, and but you're taught like, no, no, you don't do this, no, no, head down, keep your mouth shut, just work hard, steady job, don't leave a job without having a job. Although there was another part of my brain that was like, but what if? And I was thinking of, and it was like keeping you, stopping the risk aspect of it, not stopping you being you. Well, it was stopping me being me, but not deliberately. It was like trying to protect, and I totally understand that. But in later years, my mum came along with me and was like, you go, girl. I did step out and start my own job. But in the young years, it was like, oh no, no, do this, do that. And there was a lot of like fear and anxiety around keeping yourself employed and keeping yourself financially kind of safe. And that had me in a bit of a tug of war all my life of how I was conditioned as a child and into my adulthood by my family, and also just how I naturally am in my brain. So I think I've always been a bit discontented and a bit of a tug of war. And I've done a lot of work since becoming a business owner and into the entrepreneurship and business coaching, but also actual mental health therapy as well, to start really understanding myself, reinventing or re-understanding, whichever way you want to look at it, and realizing, oh, that's why I was like that. That's why I constantly burnt out. That's why I was always looking for external validation, that type of thing, and really understanding yourself. And that kind of drops all those shackles off you and gives you a bit of liberation when you realize what conditioning was, what was just circumstantial, what was your social economics growing up, and understanding your relationship with all of that. Yeah, so I'm quite excited now that I'm at this stage.
It's so interesting, isn't it? How all those things, those cultural things you grow up with, those family things, those expectations, all kind of shape you until you can move beyond them and reinvent to your next kind of more authentic version of yourself. Sometimes you have to escape them, and I think that's fascinating. But you did, you did follow that sort of safety first, I mean, very successfully for a time, and you went into medical publishing, I think, and you were very senior there. You spent 15 years in a corporate environment. So how was that for you?
In the early stages, I really loved it. There was a lot of travel, and there was a lot of autonomy, a lot of, you had a lot of agency of what you were doing and building things. If you had an idea, you could run with it. And that worked really well to a point with me, and I got really comfortable. Yeah, and I thought, no, this is great, and traveled the world. But I think becoming a mum and the kids and that break, you start realizing, oh, actually, is this what I want to do forever? Do I want to move to another publisher? So do I want to stay here? Is there anywhere else I can move here to progress? And the ideas that, I mean, there was such a disruption, and which is still kind of happening in the print world. And I absolutely love print, even though I completely work digitally now. I do love print. I still miss like producing a magazine. I think they weren't. I didn't feel it was moving quick enough for what we needed to do in terms of where life was going, where digital was going, and what everybody was needing the product to be. Personally, that's what I thought, and I kind of felt like I was pushing a bit of a boulder uphill. And then I thought, you're sacrificing time with the kids, and you're thinking, well, I'm working this hard, I'm still here, I'm last one out or first one in or whatever. You're like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I put a commute into my life after my second child, because we moved out of Edinburgh over the bridge just for more space, which is brilliant. And actually, funnily enough, doing that allowed me to go into my own business, because if I would pushed herself to have the space we needed in Edinburgh, I'd have been chained to the salary, whereas I kind of inadvertently gave myself a bit of choice there. So what I thought was the flexibility for my kids. That was the catalyst. But then when I really started, I realised that wasn't the whole story, that actually that was the permission that I would allow myself, that it was for my kids, and then realising that actually I do just want to do my own thing here. But I've been on tap for the kids, pickups and drop-offs and mum taxi, and, I'm always here for them 90% of the time. I do travel a bit again, but yeah, I'm here for them.
I find it very interesting that of my guests on here, quite a few women say that having children was a reinvention time, forced them into a reinvention. And I think I've only ever heard one man say that. So I think, I think even now there is a difference. I mean, becoming a parent is always something of a reinvention, but I think, still it hits women harder. And often, there's a real kind of questioning about how you manage the two sides of your life. But you made a big decision in 2018 to leave that secure, comfortable, very senior role and start your own business. So what was the process you went through in reinventing yourself from a kind of senior executive to an entrepreneur and taking that risk and being in a very different environment, really?
I'd love to say it was really thought out and planned. I'd love to say that I went down all the right routes to do it. I didn't. It was emotionally led. And I was in another burnout, which is a cycle that I just constantly go through in my life, which I now, as I say, understand why that has kept happening. And I was just shattered, and I was missing the kids. And I thought, I can't do this anymore. I was quite miserable. And I thought, right, let's do this. And I took a part-time job. I thought, right, I'll do that to keep money coming in. Stuart, my husband, was going to take on the lion's share, which had always been mine of the unit. And I said, right, well, I will do this. It didn't quite work out that way with redundancies and everything. So it was a bit hairy over the last few years, but we're through it. And I just thought, I'm just going to do it. I'm actually writing a book at the moment entitled How Not to Start a Business. And it's
what a fabulous title. That's
yeah. And it is, I had nearly 20 years of a career, a bit like parenthood and entrepreneurship. You don't know till you know. You don't know till you're in it, and you're like, oh, this isn't what I thought this would be. This is different. The reinvention, I kind of hid for a wee while as well. So that 2018 to 2020, my confidence absolutely nosedived, probably from 2 pregnancies, but also leaving that role and not understanding how much my professional identity was actually wrapped in that title. A bit of naivety and maybe a wee bit of arrogance on my part. And then when I left it and left the structure, not knowing ADHD was, rampant in my brain. When I lost that structure, I did kind of spiral. I was like, oh my goodness, what have I done? And I was doing amazing things, but I wasn't telling anybody, didn't have a website, didn't post. I was just like squirreling away in the background. And there was a real fear of just being seen in those first couple of years. And then they're one of my longest standing clients now, I was coming to Edinburgh with a conference and they needed some help. And I said, okay. And I got a delegate pass to help out. And I wanted to go, and I ended up producing an app for them, which was done really quickly. And that was my kind of maiden voyage. And then, of course, COVID happened, and it kind of took off at that point because people were like, oh, actually, Heather, can you do this? Can you do that? And that's when the podcast side of my business came about. So now I think I need to relook at what the business is as well, because there's a lot of business management happening as well as the media and marketing that's going on. So I'm taking on associations and actually doing digital transformation, but for growth. So I think I need to look at how I'm going to be messaging myself this year as well.
I just wanted to go back and ask you about the ADHD diagnosis and what led you to that. And was it sort of like a dawning awareness, a sort of a greater public knowledge that we've all sort of learnt over the last few years about what ADHD and neurodivergence is? How did it sort of manifest itself to you, and how did you start to feel that there was actually, this was a thing rather than just you having problems?
Yeah. When I left the security of the role, I did go into a kind of panic mode. I felt ridiculous fear. And I would wake up in the morning and I wouldn't know what day it was. I wouldn't know what I was doing. And I started to feel a bit unhinged, I suppose. And I knew I'd had a few burnouts. I knew that anxiety was worse after my first child. And I now know that having children can exacerbate the symptoms of ADHD being unmanaged. And the first birth was very traumatic. And that's when anxiety really took a grip. And all that masking, all that bravado, all that this is who I am just disappeared. And I was just left with I don't really know how to kind of live at the moment. I just want to be in a cocoon with my baby. So when it got to 2018, 2019, I thought, I don't think this is right. This is constant, this fear and this cycle of plummeting. And even if I get something great happening in the business, it's like the next day is a massive crash. And I'm like, I don't think that's normal. So I first raised it at the end of 2019 and I got referred. But of course, we all know what happened in 2020. So it got kind of thrown out. Then I think into 2020, I tried again, but there's no particular service for it in Fife. So at this point, they started to get inundated. So I've been triaged out 3 times now where I've tried to go for a diagnosis and they just say you're functioning, but I'm going back through it again now. So I went after my mum, the end of 2021, I lost my mum to cancer. And that was another kind of defining moment of losing myself to reinvent myself again. I basically lost my anchor in life. And it was really hard. The first 2 years after mum was, it was desperately hard. And I had no idea. I knew it was going to be bad, but the pain was horrific. So I think I need help again. So I luckily got 10 weeks of CBT last summer, and that was revelation. It was just amazing, the work that we did in those 10 weeks and kind of reshaping things and kind of letting go of why I didn't want to be seen, which goes right back to that loud house and my grannies and all this kind of stuff. And it's helped me work that out. And, I haven't been formally diagnosed, but 100%, I'm pretty sure I've got it because I'm now doing lots of reading up myself and I'm really understanding my reaction to things and how I can stop the fear from bubbling up and the spiraling and why the brain's kind of going off and that constant not feeling enough, that constant I'll prove you wrong by producing, and if I'm busy I'm successful, right? So that's kind of how I lived my adult life. I kept busy, I kept producing, then I'm a success. And I think that was that coping mechanism of the conflict of different things from how my brain works to how I was brought up to some of the negative responses to different mentors through my life that should have helped me, not tear me down. But then the other side, there was other mentors that did help me and did raise me up as well.
That's a really good explanation of a kind of slow understanding reinvention of yourself, I would say, because reinventions aren't quick usually. There's a lot of build up to them. As you say, they often start from a kind of burnout or just a feeling that this isn't right, this isn't working for me anymore. But it can take, a year or more to understand what you need to be and do next. And then actually for you to be able to manifest that new you, that reinvented person. So Heather, tell me what you actually do now. And you just said you're probably about to do another reinvention this year. But
Reinvention.
what is the business at the moment? Because I know you do an awful lot.
When we said I just took a leap of faith, and when in the book I talk about jumping off the cliff without the parachute and making the parachute on the way down, that is just, I think as an entrepreneur, I think most people actually do that no matter how organized they actually are. When you're in it, it starts to ebb and flow and change anyway. So I started just what they needed. So it was like a bit of social media. Oh, can we do a podcast? Can you help us with the website? Can you update this? So it started just like, well, what do you need? What do you need? And then it's grown into, I do go into teams and do consultancy and say, what is it you need? What is it you think you need? And then I show them what they do need and like work out planning. But for the medical side, I work with a lot of associations and networks, and I've just kind of plugged in. So it used to just be a marketing plug-in, but it started to become more than that. And it's their events, it's running their membership. It's like looking at the longevity of their legacy, on how they can keep the money going back in because it's not for profit. So that everything that they make goes back into the association so that they can continue on and give out their resources, either for members or the wider audience. So there is a lot of business management coming in on that now, and I'm loving that side. But what I need to do in my next few years is get to the point where I'm not delivering it all. Whereas at the moment I'm delivering the majority of it. I want to get to the point where running it and delivery is happening with my team. Yeah, but I love it, absolutely love it. I was just in Bristol last week and we did the soft robotics for healthcare conference, and it was a huge success. It was brilliant.
So what's your vision into the future then? I mean, obviously you want to delegate, but who is that new you that's kind of coming up and waiting to be reinvented?
I think it's twofold. I'd quite like to have a company that can run on its own. So get to a point where blueprint what I've been doing for these associations, and then it's mainly medical at the moment, but I have worked across sectors. But once I get that blueprint right, really, if it's any membership organisation, the blueprint should be able to work across that. So I'd like to scale it and grow it and bring in more. And the other side of that is me as a personality, is me as a voice. As I get older, that I can become a keynote speaker, for example, or start doing other projects that I would like to do to give back as well, whether that's through the book and the podcast. So I'm speaking to other business owners and I'm going to put it out as a podcast too. I don't know if it's going to continue, but I'm going to do about 6 or 8 episodes. But I like the idea of helping others that think, oh, people like me don't do businesses, or I do a business, but hold themselves back to the next level of success, which I now understand and is an absolute money mindset thing, which is something that I've gone through to understand as well. And I do think there is a bit of a gender thing there as well, that you can only go so far. You know, I should just do this and then that's fine. But actually, there's so much more you could be doing. And your story, I listened to your first podcast and your story is incredible. And I resonated with it so much about the losing of identity and what do I do? What do I do now? Who am I? And your story is utterly incredible and really inspiring. And listening to Dana as well, I really resonated with Dana's episode too, about the feeling so responsible for everybody around you, but also that constant running and leadership and doing, but actually there's a problem there with people that are high functioning. Then I think I might put myself in the bracket now.
Yeah, that was so interesting, wasn't it? Because, you know, if you continue to function, nobody sees what's going on underneath, and you're not necessarily doing yourself
Yeah.
or anybody else any favors by suppressing the needs you might have and the burnout. Well, that's really exciting, and I do think as well that, in my view, perhaps I would say this, wouldn't I? But I think becoming an author is a reinvention in itself. It's a different you that emerges having written a book. I do think that the writing process is an extraordinary piece of self-development and clarification of who
Hmm.
you are and what you are and your stories and what you do and how you do it. But also then becoming an author, you are by default an expert And the world sees you in a different light once you have your name on the front of a wonderful book. I do look forward to seeing your book very much. But Heather, Heather, if there are people out there, people listening, and as I hope there are, who are on the edge of a reinvention or just feeling that, this can't go on, I need to change, something has to be different. What advice would you give them?
There's a few bits and pieces. I would say trust the drive that's inside you. Trust the inner voice that's always going, no, no, you can do this. And there'll be points where you're tired and exhausted and like, should I keep doing this or should I just get a job? And that's usually exhaustion speaking, or that's my experience on it. But I think surround yourself with good people as well. I kind of kept myself to myself for a few years. And then once I opened up into communities, I was like, oh my goodness, other people feel like I do. Other people see this. And oh, I thought it was just me. I thought I was failing in some sort of way. But also, the one thing I wish I did sooner is realize that my value. So realize that you are worth getting help. You are worth bringing in help, and you'll tell yourself you can't afford it. You'll tell yourself you can't afford a VA or you can't afford somebody to help you with editing, that you can do it all yourself. But actually, the sooner you can offset some of the stuff that isn't necessarily needed to be done by you, the better, and that will help you grow. And just get your accounts out to a decent accountant. Don't be trying to do it yourself. Just get rid of it. If you don't like doing it, get somebody else. And that's the other thing I thought was, gosh, who am I to be doing this? And I knew I had gaps in my skill set when I left that job. But you can learn. You can learn so much. There's so much at your fingertips. There's so many communities. There's so many books, so many podcasts, so many courses. You can just learn. But also, you can outsource. You don't have to be an expert. You just need to know where you want to get to and understand the standard that you want and bring somebody else to help you do that. So those are things. And just keep believing in yourself. And it's not going to be a straight road and it will be hard, but it will be amazing as well. And believe. That's what I would say.
That's absolutely brilliant advice, Heather. I love that. And I especially love you saying that, get out there and realize that you're not on your own, because when you're reinventing, you're often in a not very comfortable place and you do feel nobody else can understand what you're going through. And actually, there are lots of people who are doing the same thing or have done it and would like to give you a hand through it. So I think that is brilliant advice. Thank you so much, Heather, for sharing your reinvention stories with us. I'm really grateful for you being here. Thank you.
And thank you. Thank you for listening to me.
It is interesting how motherhood and sometimes fatherhood can often act as a catalyst for reinvention and different ways of working and claiming control back over your time and schedule. And I found Heather very insightful about how understanding her neurodivergence allowed her to reinvent her confidence and belief in herself over a period of time. Thank you so much, Heather Pownall, for sharing your reinvention story with us. If you enjoyed this Phoenix conversation, please like the episode and subscribe to the podcast wherever you access it, on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube, or maybe all three. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Due to my husband's unspellable and unpronounceable name, I am the only Lucy Macara on the internet, and I'd love to hear your reinvention story. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.